Okay, folks, welcome to our stock chart analysis of Groupon, ticker symbol GRPN. Many of you probably haven't even heard of this company, but it was a high flyer at one point in time. And as you know, that we are always looking for diamonds in the rough, in particular in a market such as we find ourselves in now. Now, Groupon is basically a coupon issuer on the internet. I use them all the time up until about 2020 because I used to get Groupons for restaurants, discounts. And I always want a discount, so I love Groupon. So I always revisit the ticker symbol from time to time. And I ran a scan on TrendSpider not too long ago, and it pulled up a series of stocks that were on a 6 rolling period basis. They were just trading sideways, indicating they'd stopped going down and that they were moving up higher. That was around back here, late May of 2023. So fast forward, given the fact that we're in this environment now economically where the consumer is dead, and yes, consumer spending is expected to drop off even further, but those who are spending are going to want to save as much money as possible. So that brought me back to take a look at Groupon because I remembered the setup that was happening. In essence, Groupon had stopped going down. So the question is, was it consolidating? Was it getting ready for a move up higher into an economic backdrop that allows for Groupon to thrive? So let's do some analysis on it. And I'll share with you whether or not I think that Groupon is a buy, sell, or a hold. Let's get to it. We're going to begin with a little bit of history of Groupon, where it was. And it peaked out back here in November of 2011 at a price of $622.80. Amazing. The shares closed out today $18.06. So that's a discount. Talk about a Groupon, that's a Groupon. So on a monthly chart that you're looking at right now, I see a lot of value here. I want you to think about something. I want you to think about where the market has been so far in 2025. In fact, let's do this. Let's go to a daily chart really quick. And then I'm going to overlay the S&P 500 here in white relative to Groupon. And you could see that while the S&P 500 was rolling over, not that this is an S&P 500 stock, just for illustrative purposes, I can overlay the mid-cap ETF or the small-cap ETF. It's going to look very much the same. So you have the shares of Groupon, which are vastly outperforming the S&P 500 as they're in an uptrend, whereas the S&P 500 in white is in a downtrend. So that speaks volumes. And if you want to take a look at it on a weekly time frame, there you have it. I mean, clearly Groupon is an outperformer of the S&P 500, the IWM mid caps, whatever you want to compare it to. It's just vastly outperforming it. And it's not for any other reason than economic reasons. This is a great environment for Groupon. So back to the monthly chart, and you could see that what we're doing here is that we are putting in higher lows. And if I were to overlay the automated trend lines, this is the algorithm on TrendSpider, you could see that if you had this functionality, I click this button here, monthly chart, boom. Right here, the algorithm just drew the downtrend channel on Groupon. You can see that back in February of 2024, we broke out. That breakout failed, but then in May of 2024, we were able to recapture that breakout point and just drifted down and retested a lower band of support. Now, when you take a look at seasonality on TrendSpider, you'll see here, let me expand this out. You'll see here that December is by far the best month out of the year for Groupon. That's great information to have, by far. No other month comes anywhere close than December. So you take a look at the chart of Groupon and you ask yourself, when did Groupon break out? Right here in December. No great shock. That's the power of seasonality. We broke out. Again, we began to dance around Then right here, something strange happened, but strange in a good way. In March, Goldman Sachs came out and they downgraded the stock to a sell. And what did the share price do? It exploded up higher. Now, we could say that Goldman Sachs had nefarious motives. Maybe they wanted to knock down the share price so they could bid it back up, taking advantage of what they knew was going to be a perfect environment for Groupon. But let's give them a pass. Let's pretend that they had no ulterior motive. So if they had no ulterior motive and Goldman Sachs downgraded Groupon and the shares broke out, is that not what we like to call in the trading community a tell? A tell, meaning the share price should have been knocked down. And in fact, they downgraded the stock price on, let me validate to make sure I'm accurate here, 3/14, 2025. Here is 3/14, 2025. All right, we had already broken out. It was a down day, but we got followed through the next day. I mean, clearly the bottom is in on Groupon. So the share price on a monthly basis looks awesome. We know that relative to the S&P 500, the small caps, mid caps, whatever you want to measure it against, it is outperforming the rest of the market. Now we're going to wrap up the charts here, and I'm going to share with you a little bit more information that's going to be valuable to you as an investor or a trader of these shares. But before we go to that information, let's hang on here. Let's go to a weekly chart, because what I want to do is I want to illustrate that even if you do not have a lot of technical experience with trading using technical analysis, let's go to the weekly chart. All you need to do is, if you had TrendSpider, is click on this button here, chart patterns. Click of a button, bam. What you would have picked up, this was set up to, I use descending triangle and falling wedge formations. I like to scan for that. And you could see that we had a descending wedge formation, which we exploded out of. So strong, we never even bothered to pull back and do a retest of the breakout point, which is something I generally like to see. But the shares were so strong, they just continued up higher, which makes me want to take a look at how volume is. When you take a look at volume, you're looking for institutional accumulation. Do we have that? And clearly on the breakout here, the answer was yes. Back in, this is on a weekly chart, so the week of the 17th, more follow through on volume. The week of the 24th, more volume follow through. We had a pullback in the markets here. Groupon pulled back. And then the following week, meaning last week, we had an outside reversal bar on volume yet again. So clearly the shares are under institutional accumulation. Now, in doing my analysis, I always like to call TrendSpider my Bloomberg terminal for the average guy. And when you take a look at what the insiders are doing, I ran across this gentleman here, Jason Harenstein. He bought $159,000 worth of stock back in August. So, sometimes directors, they're just hired for nepotism. So sometimes you get a director that has some really good knowledge of the company. So I did a little bit of research on Jason, and I ran across this. This is the announcement back on July the 7th, 2023, that he was joining the board. And it's really just a generic announcement, nothing telling per se. So then I went over to Grok. This is the AI for X, Twitter. And I ran a query. This man just bought a lot of Groupon stock. Is he very relevant? If so, why versus any other director? And I posted in here the announcement. And Grok fed back. Jason Harenstein's purchase of Groupon stock and his appointment to the board in July of 2023 stand out due to his role as Groupon's Senior Vice President of Corporate Development and Strategy, giving him deep insight into the company's operations and challenges. Unlike a typical director, his return to Groupon as a board member, combined with his recent stock purchase of 15,000 shares at $10.61, signals strong confidence in the company's turnaround efforts. So this gentleman has some deep knowledge of the internal workings of Groupon, so much so that he put $159,000 of his own capital to work in addition to the stock that he already owned. So let's recap here. We have a breakout on a monthly time frame. We have a breakout on a weekly time frame out of a descending wedge formation. Again, automated chart patterns. We have that breakout on very heavy volume. We have Goldman Sachs, which back on March the 14th, downgraded the stock to a sell, and the stock just kept moving up. That's a tell. That's telling us that there were no more sellers to be had. And the path of least resistance has now changed from being down to sideways to now up. And of course, we have an insider, which has a lot of history with the internal workings of Groupon buying the stock. So I think that Groupon is a buy here. At some point in time in the very near future, I'll be issuing an alert to members when we want to be a part of Groupon to the long side. If you're not currently a member, sign up for our 14-day free trial offer. Get TrendSpider for free with our silver and gold level membership. And if you're not ready, that's fine. At least get TrendSpider. Use the link below on YouTube, link above on Twitter. Get a bare minimum of a 35% discount off of the membership level that is right for you. And don't forget, like, subscribe, and have a profitable day. Take care. Be well.